Commander Lyra Vex stood before the massive throne in the center of the Zephyrian command ship. The room was dark except for the blue light that came from the walls. Empress Kayla sat on her throne, her 6 arms moving slowly as she looked at the reports on her screen. "Another failure," the Empress said, her voice cold and angry. "The humans refused to surrender. They destroyed 3 of our battle fleets last week." Lyra kept her head down. She had heard the news too. The humans were different from other species the Empire had conquered. Most aliens gave up after the first attack. The humans kept fighting even when they were losing badly. "Your Majesty," Lyra said carefully, "perhaps we need a different approach." Empress Kayla's 4 eyes focused on Lyra. "That is exactly what I was thinking. You have never failed me, Commander Vex. Your abilities have brought down kings and presidents across the galaxy." Lyra nodded. It was true. She was the Empire's most deadly weapon, but not because of her guns or ships. Her body produced special chemicals that made other species want to trust her and follow her commands. Her mind could also reach into the thoughts of others and change what they believed. She had used these gifts to destroy dozens of civilizations from the inside. "Tell me about their leader," Lyra said. The Empress waved her hand, and a picture appeared in the air between them. It showed a human male with brown hair and serious blue eyes. He wore a simple military uniform with no fancy decorations. "Captain Jake Morrison," the Empress said. "Age 35. He commands the human defense fleet from a ship called Liberty's Edge. Before the war, he was just a transport pilot. Now he has united all the human colonies under one command. They follow him like he is some kind of hero." Lyra studied the image. Jake Morrison looked ordinary compared to the powerful aliens she usually targeted. He was not very tall or strong-looking. But something in his eyes made her pause. There was a strength there that she could not understand. "What makes him special?" she asked. "That is what you will find out," the Empress replied. "You will go to him. Make him trust you. Get close to him. Then you will either turn him to our side or kill him. Without their leader, the humans will fall apart." Lyra bowed her head. "It will be done, Your Majesty." "See that it is. Take one of our old transport ships. Make it look damaged. Let them rescue you. Play the part of a survivor from one of the worlds we destroyed. They are known for helping refugees." The Empress stood up from her throne. She was twice as tall as Lyra, and her purple skin gleamed in the blue light. "Do not fail me, Commander. If you do, I will find someone else to complete this mission, and you will not live to see that day." 3 days later, Lyra sat in the pilot seat of a small damaged ship. She had spent hours making it look like it had been in a battle. Burn marks covered the hull. The engines barely worked. The life support systems kept shutting down. She had changed her appearance too. Her natural blue skin was now pale like a human's. Her silver hair was brown. Special contact lenses hid her real eye color. To any scanner, she would look like a refugee from Kepler-7, a human colony the Empire had destroyed 2 months ago. Her ship drifted in space near the edge of human territory. She had sent out a weak distress signal and waited. According to Empire intelligence, human ships always responded to calls for help even during wartime. She did not have to wait long. Her sensors picked up 3 human ships approaching fast. They were smaller than Zephyrian warships, but moved with quick, precise movements. As they got closer, she could see their weapons were ready but not aimed at her. "Unknown vessel, this is Lieutenant Amy Carter of the UES Liberty's Edge," a female voice said over the radio. "We received your distress call. What is your situation?" Lyra made her voice sound weak and scared. "Please help me. My name is Luna Kelly. I escaped from Kepler-7 before the attack. My ship is failing. I don't have much time." There was a pause. Then the voice came back, softer now. "Luna, this is Amy. We're going to help you. Just hold on. We're bringing you aboard now." A bright light surrounded Lyra's ship as the human tractor beam pulled her toward their vessel. Through her window, she could see the Liberty's Edge up close. It was not as big as Empire ships, but it looked strong and well built. Weapons covered its hull, but they were designed for defense, not conquest. The ship's bay doors opened and her transport was pulled inside. As the doors closed behind her, Lyra checked her equipment one last time. Hidden in her clothes were small devices that would help her map the ship and learn its secrets. Her body was ready to release the chemicals that would make the humans trust her. Her mind was prepared to read their thoughts and find their weaknesses. The bay filled with air and several humans in military uniforms walked toward her ship. She could see them through her window. They moved carefully but not with fear. Their weapons were ready but pointed at the ground. They looked like they really wanted to help her. One of them, a woman with short red hair, tapped on her window. "Luna, can you hear me? You're safe now. We're going to get you out of there." Lyra opened the ship's door and stepped out slowly. She had practiced looking weak and hurt. She stumbled a little, and the red-haired woman caught her arm. "Easy there," the woman said. "I'm Lieutenant Amy Carter. This is Dr. Ben Hayes and Sergeant Lisa Parker. We're here to help." "Thank you," Lyra whispered. "I thought I was going to die out there." Dr. Hayes, an older man with kind eyes, scanned her with a medical device. "She's dehydrated and exhausted, but otherwise healthy. We should get her to the medical bay." "No," Lyra said quickly. "I need to speak to your captain. I have information about the Empire's next attack. Important information." Amy and Ben looked at each other. "The captain is on the bridge," Amy said. "But you should rest first." "Please," Lyra said, making her voice sound desperate. "People will die if I don't warn him soon," Amy nodded slowly. "All right, but if you feel sick or weak, you tell us right away." As they walked through the ship's corridors, Lyra used her enhanced senses to study everything around her. The humans had good technology, but it was simpler than what the Empire used. What surprised her was how clean and well-maintained everything looked. The crew members they passed looked healthy and alert. They nodded respectfully to Amy and smiled at Lyra with genuine warmth. This was not what she had expected. Empire propaganda said humans were violent and chaotic, but these people seemed organized and disciplined. More than that, they seemed to care about each other. They reached the bridge and Amy pressed a button on the wall. "Captain Morrison, we have the refugee here. She says she has important information about an Empire attack." The doors opened, and Lyra saw him for the first time in person. Captain Jake Morrison was exactly as he appeared in the pictures, but there was something the images had not captured. He had a presence that filled the room without him trying. When he looked at her, she felt like he could see right through her disguise. "Welcome aboard the Liberty's Edge," he said, walking toward them. His voice was calm and strong. "I'm Captain Morrison. Amy tells me you have information for us." Lyra looked into his eyes and prepared to release her chemicals. She focused her mind and tried to reach into his thoughts. This was the moment when her target would begin to fall under her influence. But nothing happened. Jake Morrison smiled at her with simple kindness. "You look tired. Would you like something to eat and drink before we talk? The information can wait until you feel better." Lyra stared at him in shock. Her abilities had no effect on him at all. It was like trying to cut steel with paper. This had never happened before in her entire life. She started to say, then stopped. She had no idea what to do next. 3 days had passed since Lyra came aboard the Liberty's Edge. She had been given a small room near the guest quarters and was treated like any other refugee. The humans brought her food, gave her clean clothes, and asked nothing in return, except that she rest and recover. This confused her more than anything else. She sat on her bed staring at the wall. Every species she had encountered before wanted something from her right away: information, services, loyalty. But these humans just seemed happy that she was safe. Dr. Hayes checked on her every morning, not because he suspected anything, but because he genuinely cared about her health. "How are you feeling today, Luna?" he would ask, using the fake name she had given them. "Better, thank you," she would answer, and he would smile and leave her alone. Lieutenant Amy Carter was different. Lyra could tell that Amy did not fully trust her. The red-haired woman was polite but watched Lyra carefully whenever they were in the same room. Amy's suspicion was based on military training, not personal dislike. She treated all unknowns the Same way until they proved themselves. But even Amy's distrust was nothing like what Lyra had expected. There were no interrogations, no demands for detailed information. Amy simply kept a careful eye on her and waited. The most puzzling person was Captain Morrison himself. Lyra had tried to use her abilities on him several more times, always with the same result. Nothing. Her chemical signals had no effect on him. When she tried to read his mind, it was like hitting a wall made of pure determination. She had never encountered anything like it. On the fourth day, Jake invited her to eat dinner with him and his senior officers. They gathered in a small dining room next to the bridge. The table was simple metal and the food was basic military rations, but the atmosphere was warm and friendly. "Tell us about Kepler-7, Jake said gently as they ate. "Only if you want to. We know it must be painful." Lyra had prepared a story about the attack on the colony. She knew the real details because she had been there during the planning meetings. "It happened so fast," she said, making her voice sound sad. "The Empire ships came out of nowhere. Most people didn't even have time to run." "How did you escape?" Amy asked. Her tone was not accusatory, just curious. "I was working at the spaceport when the attack started. My supervisor told me to take one of the transport ships and run. He said someone needed to warn the other colonies." Lyra had practiced this story many times. It sounded believable. Sergeant Lisa Parker, a young woman with short black hair, reached across the table and squeezed Lyra's hand. "You're safe now. That's what matters." The simple gesture of comfort made Lyra feel something strange in her chest. She had been trained to recognize and manipulate emotions in others, but she had never learned to understand her own feelings. This warm sensation was completely foreign to her. "The Empire is planning something big," Lyra continued, sticking to her mission. "I overheard some of their communications before I escaped. They're gathering ships for a major attack." Jake leaned forward, interested, but not excited. "What kind of attack?" "They want to hit 3 colonies at once. Draw your forces apart so they can defeat you piece by piece." This was actually true. Lyra had decided to give them real information to build trust, planning to feed them false details later. "That matches what our scouts have been reporting," Amy said, looking at Jake. "Increased Empire activity in the outer systems." Jake nodded slowly. "We'll pass this information to Fleet Command." "Thank you, Luna. This could save Liz." After dinner, Jake walked Lyra back to her quarters. The ship's corridors were quiet during the night shift. Only a few crew members were on duty, and they nodded respectfully as their captain passed. "Captain," Lyra said as they reached her door, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why are you helping me?" "I mean really helping. You don't know anything about me. For all you know, I could be lying about everything." Jake stopped walking and looked at her. In the dim corridor lighting, his blue eyes seemed even more serious than usual. "That's true," he said. "You could be lying. But you were alone in a damaged ship asking for help. That's all I needed to know. What if I'm dangerous? Then we'll deal with that when it happens. But I won't stop helping people just because some of them might be threats. That's not who we are." Lyra stared at him. "Who you are? Humans," Jake said simply. "We help each other. We help anyone who needs it if we can. It's not always smart, and it doesn't always work out well for us, but it's what makes us human." That night, Lyra lay awake thinking about Jake's words. In her world, helping others was a sign of weakness. The strong survived by taking what they needed from the weak. Kindness was just another tool for manipulation. But these humans seemed to believe something completely different. They thought helping others made them stronger, not weaker. It was an idea so alien to her that she could barely understand it. The next morning, she decided to test them. She went to the ship's engineering section, where Mike Torres was working on the main power systems. Mike was a friendly man in his 40s who always smiled when he saw her. "Hi, Luna," he said, not looking up from his work. "What brings you down here?" "I was wondering about your ship's engines," she said. "I've never seen anything like them." This was a lie. Zephyrian technology was far more advanced than human engineering. But she wanted to see how much information Mike would give to a stranger. "Really?" Mike's face lit up with enthusiasm. Most people find this stuff boring. Here, let me show you. For the next 2 hours, Mike explained everything about the ship's power systems. He showed her the engine core, the backup generators, and the emergency systems. He answered every question she asked, no matter how detailed. He even gave her a small data pad with technical manuals so she could read more later. Any other species would have been suspicious of so many technical questions. Mike just seemed happy to share his knowledge with someone who was interested. You know, he said as they finished the tour, if you want to stay with the fleet after this war is over, we could use more engineers. You ask good questions. Lyra felt that strange, warm feeling again. Mike was offering her a future, a place to belong, without knowing anything about her background. The Empire had trained her to see this as stupidity, but something deep inside her recognized it as something else entirely. Later that day, she was walking through the ship when she heard shouting from the medical bay. She followed the noise and found Dr. Hayes arguing with an injured crew member. I don't care if it's just a scratch, Tony, Dr. Hayes was saying firmly. You're going to let me clean and bandage that cut properly. The crew member, a young man, with grease stains on his uniform, was trying to leave. Doc, I'm fine. I've got work to do. The work can wait 5 minutes. Sit down. Lyra watched from the doorway as Dr. Hayes carefully cleaned the man's cut hand and wrapped it with clean bandages. The injury was minor, hardly worth noticing, but the doctor treated it with the same care he would give to a serious wound. There, Dr. Hayes said when he finished. Keep it clean and dry, change the bandage tomorrow. Thanks, Doc, Tony said, looking embarrassed. Sorry for being difficult. That's what I'm here for, Dr. Hayes replied with a smile. As Tony left, he noticed Lyra watching. Don't mind me, he said with a grin. Doc takes better care of us than we take of ourselves. Dr. Hayes saw her and waved. Luna, how are you feeling? Any problems with those headaches? She had mentioned having headaches as an excuse for some of her failed attempts to read Jake's mind. Much better, thank you. Good. Remember, if you need anything, just ask. That's what we're here for. That evening, Lyra sat in her room trying to make sense of what she had seen. These humans cared for each other in ways that served no practical purpose. Dr. Hayes gained nothing by treating minor injuries with such care. Mike got no benefit from sharing his technical knowledge. Jake risked his ship's security by helping refugees. Yet somehow, this apparent weakness had made them incredibly strong. Their unity was not based on fear or force like in the Zephyrian Empire. It came from genuine respect and affection for each other. They fought harder because they were protecting people they truly cared about. She activated her hidden communicator and sent a coded message to Empress Kayla. Target remains resistant to standard approaches. Require more time to study human psychology. Will report again in 5 days. It was not entirely a lie. She did need more time. But not for the reasons the Empress would think. For the first time in her life, Lyra was beginning to question everything she had been taught about strength and weakness. These humans had shown her something she had never experienced before: unconditional kindness. They helped her because she needed help, not because they wanted something from her. As she drifted off to sleep, she found herself wondering what it would be like to belong to a group like this, to be part of something built on trust instead of fear, to have people care about her well-being simply because she was one of them. It was a dangerous thought for a Zephyrian warrior to have. But she could not stop thinking about it. 2 weeks had passed since Lyra's last report to Empress Kayla. Her hidden communicator buzzed with an incoming message while she was eating breakfast in the ship's mess hall. The message was short and threatening. Your time is running out, Commander. Provide results immediately or face the consequences. Lyra deleted the message and looked around the busy dining area. Crew members sat at tables throughout the room, talking and laughing as they ate. Several of them waved at her when they saw her looking. Lisa Parker was telling a funny story about her childhood that made everyone at her table laugh. Mike Torres was showing photos of his family back on Earth to some of the younger crew members. Dr. Hayes approached her table with his breakfast tray. Mind if I sit here, Luna? Please do, she said, and meant it. Over the past 2 weeks, she had grown to genuinely enjoy the doctor's company. He was smart and kind, and he told interesting stories about the different worlds he had visited before. The war. "You seem worried about something," Dr. Hayes said as he sat down. "Is everything all right?" Lyra hesitated. She had been trained never to show weakness or uncertainty, but something about the doctor's honest concern made her want to tell him the truth. "I've been having bad dreams," she said instead. This was partly true. Every time she tried to use her strongest telepathic abilities on Jake, the mental feedback gave her terrible nightmares. Images of conquered worlds and destroyed civilizations filled her sleep. For the first time, she was seeing her own actions through the eyes of her victims. "War does that to people," Dr. Hayes said gently. "What you survived on Kepler 7 was traumatic. It's normal to have nightmares after something like that." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small bottle. "These are mild sleeping pills. They'll help you get better rest. Take one about an hour before bed." Lyra took the bottle, knowing she would never use the pills. But the simple act of offering help touched something deep inside her. "Thank you, Doctor." "Ben," he corrected with a smile. "We're friends now. You don't need to be formal." "Friends." The word hit her like a physical blow. In the Zephyrian Empire, friendship was considered a weakness. Alliances were based on mutual benefit or fear. But Ben offered friendship freely, without expecting anything in return. That afternoon, Lyra made a decision that would have been unthinkable a month ago. She was going to try the most dangerous telepathic technique she knew. It was called a deep mind meld, and it could kill both participants if it went wrong. But it was also the only way to break through Jake's mental defenses. She waited until the night shift when most of the crew was asleep. Jake would be on the bridge, reviewing reports and planning their next moves. She had watched his routine for days and knew he always worked alone during these late hours. The bridge was dimly lit when she arrived. Jake sat at his command chair, reading data on a tablet. He looked up when she entered and smiled. "Luna, you're up late. Having trouble sleeping?" "Something like that," she said, walking closer. "Captain, can I ask you something personal?" "Sure. How do you do it? How do you stay so calm and confident when everything is falling apart around you?" Jake set down his tablet and looked at her thoughtfully. "I'm not always calm. Sometimes I'm terrified. But I can't let the crew see that. They need to believe that we can win this war." "But do you believe it? Really?" Jake was quiet for a long moment. "I have to. If I don't believe it, how can I ask them to risk their lives?" This was her moment. Lyra reached out with her mind, not to manipulate or control, but to truly understand. She opened her consciousness and dove deep into Jake's thoughts, preparing for the violent mental shock that would come when her probe hit his defenses. But instead of hitting a wall, she fell through into something vast and overwhelming. She found herself experiencing Jake's memories as if they were her own. She felt his grief when he learned about the destruction of the first human colonies. She experienced his fear during the early battles when it seemed like humanity had no chance of survival. She felt his crushing sense of responsibility every time he sent people into combat, knowing that some of them would not come back. But underneath all the pain and fear, she found something that amazed her. Hope. Not naive optimism, but genuine. Hope based on his absolute faith in the people around him. He believed in humanity not because they were perfect, but because they were good, because they helped each other, protected each other, and never gave up on each other. The experience was too much for her mind to handle. She had been raised in a culture of cynicism and domination. This pure, selfless love for his species was completely alien to her. She felt her consciousness fracturing under the weight of emotions she had never learned to process. She screamed and collapsed on the bridge floor. Jake was beside her instantly, checking her pulse and calling for Dr. Hayes. "Medical emergency on the bridge," he said into his communicator. "Luna's collapsed. We need Ben up here right now." As Lyra drifted in and out of consciousness, she heard Jake's voice. "It's okay. You're safe. Ben's coming. Just hold on." When she woke up several hours later, she was in the medical bay. Dr. Hayes was checking her vital signs while Jake sat in a chair next to her bed. Both men looked worried and tired. "How do you feel?" Dr. Hayes asked when he saw her eyes open. "Like I fell off a mountain," she said honestly. Her head felt like it had been split in half and put back together wrong. "You had some kind of seizure," Dr. Hayes explained. "Your brain activity went off the charts for about 30 seconds, then you lost consciousness. I've never seen anything like it." Jake leaned forward in his chair. "Luna, is there something you haven't told us? Some kind of medical condition we should know about?" Lyra looked into his eyes and saw only concern, not suspicion, not anger, just genuine worry for her well-being. After what she had just experienced in his mind, she understood why his mental defenses were so strong. His love for humanity was so pure and powerful that it created an unbreakable barrier around his thoughts. "I'm fine," she lied. "Just stress, I think." Dr. Hayes gave her a shot of something that made the pain in her head fade. "I want you to rest for the next few days. No excitement, no stress. Doctor's orders." Jake stood up to leave, then paused. At the door. "Luna, if you need anything at all, just ask. We take care of our own here." Our own. He considered her part of the crew now, part of his extended family. The realization hit her like another telepathic shock. These people had accepted her completely, despite knowing almost nothing about her real background. After Jake left, Dr. Hayes sat down in the chair beside her bed. "You know," he said quietly, "I've been a doctor for 20 years. I've seen all kinds of medical conditions. What happened to you tonight wasn't a seizure." Lyra's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I've seen telepathic feedback before. During the first contact with alien species, before the war started, some of them had mental abilities that could affect humans. When those abilities failed or backfired, the psychic shock looked exactly like what you experienced." Ben's voice was gentle, not accusatory. "I don't know who you really are, Luna, but I know you're not just a refugee from Kepler-7. The question is, are you here to help us or hurt us?" Lyra stared at him, her mind racing. She could lie again, create another story to explain away his suspicions. But something about the way he looked at her with compassion instead of fear made her want to tell the truth. "I don't know anymore," she whispered. Ben nodded slowly. "That's an honest answer. Sometimes that's the best place to start." He reached over and squeezed her hand gently. "Whatever you decide, Luna, remember that good people can make bad choices and still find their way back to the right path. You're not defined by what you've done in the past. You're defined by what you choose to do next." After he left, Lyra lay in the dark medical bay thinking about his words. For her entire life, she had been told that she was a weapon. Her purpose was to serve the Empire by destroying its enemies. The idea that she could choose a different path had never occurred to her, but now, after experiencing Jake's memories and emotions, she understood what she had been destroying all these years. She had broken apart families, shattered communities, and ended civilizations that were full of people like Ben, Lisa, Mike, and Amy. People who cared about each other and helped strangers simply because it was the right thing to do. The weight of her crimes crashed down on her like a collapsing building. She had spent years destroying the very thing that made life worth living, the connections between people who chose to love and protect each other. She began to cry, something she had not done since she was a small child. The tears came slowly at first, then in great heaving sobs that shook her entire body. She cried for all the world she had helped destroy. She cried for all the people who had trusted her and died because of that trust. She cried for the person she might have been if she had been raised with love instead of trained for war. But underneath the grief, something new was growing. For the first time in her life, she had seen what true strength looked like. It was not the power to dominate others. It was the courage to protect others, even when it cost you everything. She had been sent to seduce Jake Morrison and destroy human resistance. Instead, she had fallen for everything he represented. She had fallen for the idea that there was another way to live, another way to be. Lyra spent 3 days recovering in the medical bay. During that time, she watched the crew go about their daily routines. What she saw confirmed everything she had learned during her telepathic connection with Jake. These humans truly cared about each other. When Sergeant Parker injured her ankle during a training exercise, half the crew stopped by to check on her. When Mike Torres received news that his daughter had been born on Earth, everyone celebrated with him even though they had never met his family. When a young engineer named Danny Chen made a mistake that damaged some equipment, Jake talked to him privately instead of punishing him in front of others. It was a way of living that Lyra had never imagined possible. On her 4th day in the medical bay, her hidden communicator buzzed with an urgent message from Empress Kayla. The message was longer than usual and filled with barely controlled anger. Commander Vex, your failure is complete. I am sending Strike Force Omega to capture the human leader and eliminate all witnesses. You have 12 hours to complete your mission before they arrive. If you have not succeeded by then, you will be eliminated along with the humans. Do not disappoint me again. Lyra read the message 3 times before the full meaning hit her. Strike Force Omega was the Empire's most brutal military unit. They specialized in destroying entire populations, quickly and efficiently. If they were coming here, everyone on the Liberty's Edge would die. Everyone. Jake, Amy, Ben, Lisa, Mike, Danny, and all the others who had shown her kindness. They would be killed because of her failure. She deleted the message and sat on the edge of her medical bed, shaking. 12 hours. She had 12 hours to decide between saving her own life and protecting the people who had become more important to her than she ever thought possible. She could complete her original mission. Kill Jake or turn him against his own people. The Empire would spare her life and probably give her a new assignment. She would go back to being a weapon, destroying civilizations across the galaxy. Or she could warn the humans and help them fight. It would mean betraying the only life she had ever known. It would make her an enemy of her own species. But it would give Jake and his crew a chance to survive. Lyra had been trained to make decisions based on logic and self-preservation, but logic seemed meaningless now. Her heart was telling her something her training had never prepared her for. Some things were worth dying for. Dr. Hayes came to check on her around noon. How are you feeling today, Luna? Ben, she said quietly. What would you do if you found out someone you trusted was lying to you? Someone who could hurt you and everyone you care about? Ben sat down in his usual chair. That's a complicated question. I suppose it would depend on why they were lying and whether they wanted to change. What if they had done terrible things in the past, things that could never be forgiven? Everyone deserves a chance to make things right, Ben said gently. People can change, Luna. Sometimes the people who have done the worst things can become the strongest forces for good, because they understand the cost of evil better than anyone else. His words gave her the courage she needed. She stood up from the bed and looked directly into his eyes. Ben, I need to see Captain Morrison right away. There's something I have to tell him. Something that could save all of your lives. Something, in her tone, made Ben's expression become serious. Are you in some kind of danger? We all are. Please, just trust me one more time. Ben led her to the bridge where Jake was studying tactical displays with Amy and several other officers. When they saw Lyra approaching, the conversation stopped. Captain, Ben said, Luna says she has something urgent to tell you. Jake looked at Lyra and immediately saw the fear and determination in her eyes. Clear the bridge, he ordered. Amy, Ben, stay here. Everyone else, give us some privacy. When the other officers had left, Jake turned back to Lyra. What's wrong? Lyra took a deep breath and said the words that would change everything. My real name is not Luna Kelly. I am Commander Lyra Vex of the Zephyrian Empire. I was sent here to seduce you or kill you. And in 8 hours, a strike force is coming to destroy the ship and everyone on it. The silence that followed was deafening. Amy's hand moved to her weapon automatically. Ben stared at her in shock. Jake's expression remained calm, but she could see the pain in his eyes. You're a spy, Amy said, her voice hard with anger. I was, Lyra replied. I was a weapon designed to destroy civilizations from within. I have used my abilities to bring down dozens of worlds over the past 10 years. Your abilities? Jake asked quietly. I can produce chemicals that make other species want to trust me and follow my commands. I can also read minds and influence thoughts telepathically. I tried to use these powers on you many times, but they had no effect. Amy drew her weapon and pointed it at Lyra. Give me one reason why I shouldn't shoot you right now. Because she came to warn us, Jake said, holding up a hand to stop Amy. Luna and Lyra, why are you telling us this? Lyra felt tears forming in her eyes. Because you showed me what real strength looks like. Because Ben treated my injuries, without asking for anything in return. Because Lisa shared her food with me. Because Mike offered me a job and a future. Because all of you accepted me as family even though you knew nothing about me. She wiped her eyes and continued. I have spent my whole life destroying communities like this one, but I never understood what I was destroying until I experienced it myself. You people care about each other in ways that make you stronger than any weapon the Empire has. I can't be part of destroying that anymore. Jake stepped closer to her. What kind of strike force is coming? 12 ships, heavy assault class. They will try to disable your engines first, then board you. Their orders are to capture you alive if possible and kill everyone else. Amy lowered her weapon slightly. How do we know this isn't just another trick, another way to manipulate us? Because, Lyra said, looking directly at Amy, if I wanted to trick you, I would have waited until the attack started and then disabled your defenses from the inside. Telling you now gives you time to prepare or escape. Jake studied her face for a long moment. What do you recommend we do? Run, Lyra said immediately. You cannot fight 12 Empire ships with one vessel, no matter how brave your crew is. Get to the nearest human fleet base and warn them what's coming. What about you? Ben asked. If you help us, you'll be a traitor to your own people. I became a traitor the moment I decided that your lives were more important than my mission, Lyra replied. There is no going back for me now. Jake made his decision. Amy, set course for Centauri base, maximum speed. Ben, make sure our guest quarters are secure. Lyra, you're going to tell us everything you know about Empire tactics and technology. You're trusting her? Amy asked incredulously. She could have let us die, Jake replied. Instead, she chose to save us even though it will probably cost her everything. That tells me who she really is, regardless of who she used to be. For the next 6 hours, Lyra shared every piece of intelligence she had about the Zephyrian Empire. Ship designs, weapon capabilities, military tactics, weaknesses in their technology. She held nothing back, knowing that each piece of information made her more of a traitor, but also gave humanity a better chance of survival. Amy remained suspicious, but gradually began to accept that Lyra's information was genuine and valuable. Ben continued to treat her with the same kindness he had before, which somehow made her betrayal of the Empire easier to bear. As they approached the edge of human space, their sensors detected the approaching strike force. 12 massive ships, just as Lyra had warned. The Empire vessels were faster than the Liberty's edge and would catch up before they reached safety. They're hailing us, Amy reported from the communication station. Put it through, Jake ordered. Empress Kayla's voice filled the bridge, cold and furious. Captain Morrison, you have something that belongs to me. Return Commander Vex immediately and I may allow some of your crew to live. Jake looked at Lyra, then activated the communication system. Your Majesty, Commander Vex has requested asylum with the human fleet. We are granting her request. Impossible, the Empress snarled. She is my creation, my weapon. She belongs to me. No one belongs to anyone else, Jake replied firmly. People have the right to choose their own path. Lyra stepped forward and spoke into the communicator. Hello, Your Majesty. This is Commander Vex. I resign from the Empire, effective immediately. The silence from the Empire ships lasted for several seconds. When Empress Kayla spoke again, her voice was deadly calm. Very well. You have chosen your fate. Destroy them all. The Empire ships opened fire, and the battle for Lyra's soul began. She had made her choice. Now she would live or die with the consequences. But for the first time in her life, she was fighting for something she believed in rather than something she feared. And that made all the difference. The first volley of Empire weapons hit the Liberty's edge like a hammer blow. The ship shook violently as energy beams struck the shields. Sparks flew from control panels on the bridge as the crew fought to keep their systems online. Shields. Down to 60%, Amy reported, her hands flying over her console. They're targeting our engines. Lyra moved to an empty station without being asked. I know their attack patterns. They will try to disable you first, then board. If I can access your targeting systems, I can help you hit their weak points. Jake nodded. Do it. As Lyra's fingers moved across the human controls, she felt a strange sense of belonging. For the first time in her life, she was using her knowledge and skills to protect people instead of destroying them. It felt right in a way that nothing in her previous life ever had. There, she said, highlighting targets on the tactical display. The third ship from the left has a damaged shield generator, and the lead vessel has an exposed power coupling near the main engines. The Liberty's Edge fired its weapons, striking both targets exactly where Lyra had indicated. One Empire ship lost its shields completely, while the other suffered a power failure that forced it to fall back. Good shooting, Lisa Parker called out from the weapons station. But we can't keep this up forever. They have us outnumbered. More enemy fire struck the ship. This time something important broke. The lights flickered and went out for several seconds before the emergency power kicked in. Main power is down, Mike Torres reported from engineering. I can get it back online, but I need 5 minutes. We don't have 5 minutes, Amy said as another barrage shook the ship. Lyra made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. Give me a communicator. I have an idea. Jake handed her a portable communication device. Lyra set it to broadcast on all Zephyrian military frequencies and began to speak. This is Commander Lyra Vex of the Zephyrian Empire, she said, her voice carrying across space to every ship in the strike force. I am speaking to all Empire personnel who can hear this transmission. The enemy fire slowed as the Zephyrian commanders tried to understand what she was doing. For 10 years I have served the Empire faithfully, Lyra continued. I have conquered worlds and destroyed civilizations in the name of Zephyrian superiority. I believed that we were bringing order to a chaotic galaxy. On the bridge of the Liberty's Edge, everyone listened in fascination as Lyra spoke. Her voice was clear and strong without fear or doubt. But I have learned something during my time with these humans. True strength does not come from the ability to dominate others. It comes from the courage to protect those who cannot protect themselves. These humans have shown me what real civilization looks like. They help each other without being forced. They care for strangers without expecting rewards. They fight to defend their homes and families, not to conquer new territories. The Empire ships had stopped firing completely now. Lyra could imagine the confusion and debate happening on their bridges as her words reached crews who had never heard anyone question the Empire's methods. I know many of you joined the military because you wanted to serve something greater than yourselves, she continued. You wanted to make the galaxy a better place, but look around you. Look at what we have become. We destroy families and burn worlds. We turn children into weapons and call it training. We spread fear instead of hope. Jake watched Lyra as she spoke, seeing the pain and determination in her face. She was risking everything on the chance that some of her former comrades might listen. The humans are not our enemies, Lyra said. They are what we could become if we chose cooperation over conquest. They are proof that there is another way to live, another way to be strong. Her voice broke slightly as she reached the end of her speech. I am no longer fighting for the Empire. I am fighting for the idea that all people, regardless of species, deserve to live in peace and freedom. If any of you feel the same way, now is the time to choose. The communication ended, and the bridge of the Liberty's Edge fell silent. For several long minutes, nothing happened. The Empire ships hung in space without moving or shooting. Then, one by one, 3 of the 12 ships turned away from the battle and jumped to hyperspace. They're leaving, Amy said in amazement. 3 ships just abandoned the attack. But 9 ships remained and they resumed firing with renewed fury. Empress Kayla's voice came over the communication system, filled with rage. Traitors and cowards, she snarled. Destroy them all. No mercy. The battle continued with desperate intensity. The Liberty's Edge fought bravely, but they were still badly outnumbered. More systems failed under the constant bombardment. The medical bay was hit, forcing Dr. Hayes to treat injured crew members in the corridors. Lyra worked frantically at her station, coordinating the ship's defenses and identifying weak points in the enemy formation. But she could see that they were losing. The Empire ships were simply too powerful and too numerous. Then, just when hope seemed lost, new contacts appeared on the sensors. Multiple ships jumping in, Amy announced. It's the 7th Fleet. 20 human warships materialized around the battlefield. The cavalry had arrived, summoned by the distress call Jake had sent hours earlier. The Empire force found themselves suddenly outnumbered and outgunned. This is Admiral Karen Bell of the 7th Fleet, a strong female voice announced over the communication system. Empire vessels, you are surrounded. Surrender immediately or face destruction. The remaining Empire ships hesitated for only a moment before jumping to hyperspace, abandoning the attack. The battle was over. 3 weeks later, Lyra stood in the observation lounge of Centauri Base, looking out at the stars. Her injuries from the battle had healed, but the changes inside her were permanent. She was no longer the person who had infiltrated the Liberty's Edge months ago. Jake entered the lounge and stood beside her. How are you feeling? Different, she replied honestly, like I'm finally becoming who I was supposed to be all along. The Fleet Command has made a decision about your status, Jake said. They're offering you full citizenship in the Human Confederation and a position as a strategic advisor, if you want it. Lyra turned to look at him. After everything I've done? All the worlds I helped destroy? Because of everything you've done, Jake corrected. You understand the Empire better than anyone. You can help us protect other species from what you used to be part of. She was quiet for a moment, watching ships move through space outside the station. Jake, can I ask you something? Of course. How did you resist my abilities? Every other species I encountered fell under my influence within hours. But you were completely immune. Jake smiled. I wasn't immune. I felt the effects of your chemicals and telepathic probes. But I had something stronger protecting me. What? Love, he said simply. Love for my crew, for humanity, for the idea that we could build something better than what came before. When you care about something that much, it becomes impossible for anyone to change your mind or control your actions. Lyra nodded, understanding. That's what I felt when I experienced your memories. That pure, selfless dedication to protecting others. It's not selfless, Jake said. Taking care of my people takes care of me too. We're all connected. When they're safe and happy, I'm safe and happy. Dr. Hayes appeared in the doorway of the lounge. Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here to see you, Lyra. A young Zephyrian male entered the room, wearing civilian clothes instead of a military uniform. Lyra recognized him immediately as Lieutenant Kren Tor, one of the junior officers from the ship that had fled during the battle. Commander, he said, then corrected himself. Lyra, I wanted to thank you. For what? For showing us another way, Kren replied. Your speech during the battle changed everything for me and my crew. We've requested asylum with the human fleet. We want to help fight against the Empire. Lyra felt tears forming in her eyes. Kren, are you sure? Once you make this choice, there's no going back. I've seen what the Empire does to conquered worlds, he said. I've seen what happens to the families and children. I don't want to be part of that anymore. None of us do. Jake stepped forward and extended his hand to the young Zephyrian. Welcome to the family, Lieutenant Tor. As Kren shook Jake's hand, Lyra realized that her choice to betray the Empire had started something larger than she had imagined. Word of her defection and her speech was spreading throughout the Zephyrian military. Other soldiers were beginning to question their orders and their loyalty to an empire built on conquest and oppression. How many others? She asked Kren. 47 so far, he replied. Crews from 6 different ships have requested asylum. There are rumors of entire squadrons discussing defection. Lyra looked at Jake, who was smiling with quiet satisfaction. You knew this would happen, didn't you? I hoped it would, he said. People are fundamentally good regardless of what species they belong to. Sometimes they just need someone to show them that there's another choice. 6 months later, Lyra stood on the bridge of the Liberty's Edge as the ship prepared for another mission. But this time she wore the uniform of the human fleet and held the rank of Strategic Operations Commander. Her job was to coordinate the growing number of Zephyrian defectors who had joined the human cause. The war against the Empire continued, but now it was being fought differently. Instead of